Hello and welcome to Network Spotlight. I'm your host, Mikhail. On today's show, I will be talking to Oskars of Alter Network. Alter is a private and secure messaging platform that is utilizing Secret Network's private smart contracts and cryptography to give users ownership over their own encryption keys. They're looking to replace Slack and Telegram, basically all communication platforms that are centralized. We discuss the concerns over centralization, the advantages of privacy, some of the regulatory concerns, as well as why choosing Secret Network it was so important. It was a great conversation with Oscars. I think you'll definitely enjoy it. Please support the channel, subscribe, like the video so more people can get their hands on this amazing information. Thanks for the support and enjoy. You've been under the weather last few weeks. Hope that's not taken away from your ability to do the amazing work you've been working on.
No, I mean I was still checking in with the team, working while I was sick. Of course, it was a bit of challenging times for me, but yeah, now it's better. So
Well, that's great to hear. I thought of you today because one of my friends posted a Twitter status, and he was describing Web 2 companies, and then he drew like a little arrow, and then he wrote out all the Web 3 alternatives to those Web 2 companies. And in there, I commented Telegram to Alter Network. So, for those that are
nice.
listening that have no idea what I'm referring to, can you give us a glimpse into what is Alter Network?
Awesome. Yeah, I think I saw the tweet and I liked it. So thank you for that. As for Alta Network, it is a private communication suite. So what we are kind of like replacing is Slack, Discord, Telegram into one single place. Plus, of course, we're also adding some of the features from G Suite, like similar like to G Drive or Dropbox. So, and then of course like Huddle or video calls. So, and we are using end-to-end encryption, of course, but our so-called approach is completely different when it comes to these alternatives because um, we are giving all the data to the users to manage. They own the private key. They can regenerate the private key at any given moment, and it also works like a kill switch. So if you don't want your recipients to also check your previous messages and content or files that you have shared, it won't be possible after you have regenerated your keys. So when also you register, we don't ask any information and we don't collect any information about your connection with us because if you go to our website, there are no cookies. We don't track anything. So basically, we don't use anything as well for the marketing tools. So it's completely private. When it comes to comparisons, then I would say it's really good Slack version, what we want to kind of have for Web3, because I think it's the missing part because currently Slack is neither decentralized, neither it's encrypted, neither you have customizations with smart contracts, with NFTs, and also it doesn't support, I would say, Web3 approach, which is that you can collaborate and integrate anything you want. And that's in a nutshell.
So yeah, well, lots of things to unpack here. First of all, you made the comparison to Slack. Why would you say is Slack so dangerous to use?
I would say if you don't want to have your data unencrypted, shared with the database, and you never know what happens afterwards, well, you can go ahead and use Slack. But if you're like working in your team and you have some confidential items, or you're just sharing information internally about everything that is around your product, around your plans, around your financials and strategy, I would say it's better to keep that information private. You never know what can happen one day, for example, with Slack database. We never know how many times maybe the database has been hacked, because majority of all these like hacking incidents, they never get to the public side. So we see like there's quite a lot of like cybercrime markets being increasing so fast, and I would say so many companies don't even realize that their information is being um, accessible, and then it's being sold onto the dark web. So, and then pretty much you need always to have your some kind of like employee to search and scoop dark web every single day for your data, actually, because it is possible to get it easily. If you look around and you dedicate your time every single day in the dark web to search for these items, it is possible to get a majority of things you need. So I would say that's pretty big reason enough for every single team to jump off like Slack, because again, it's not even encrypted. So basically, I don't know if you're using auditor company and you're getting a so-called audit review, a draft page of summary, and well, me as a Psycho employee, I would super be interested to sell this information further on as soon as possible. I can get my hands on, you know. So you never know what is behind the so-called database and also the application you're using. Plus, also Slack is not open source, and we do want to trust open source. On our side, we will be releasing Alter Network open source as well pretty soon, because we've been developing super fast everything, so we can deliver everything perfectly with documentations and also encryption methods. So in general, yeah, plenty enough reasons to switch from. And one of them is, of course, to be in control of your data. So that's everything that we have only. It's data that we put on internet.
So, Oscars, for somebody that may not necessarily be as in tune with blockchain technology, with crypto in general, and in terms of how a specific protocol or network can monetize, this type of application. When you think about Slack, there's a subscription service, or maybe perhaps you are the user, right? Because to your point, they may take that information and sell it. But in your particular case, how are you able to monetize this if it's fully decentralized, if you're not collecting data?
The only way that we can monetize is either through subscriptions, which is the so-called standard approach when it comes to such products. And second, what we are also doing is having stake to access model, where basically we're running a validator on a network on a layer one. Um, and then we are asking for delegations from both of the foundation and also the so-called community of that network to delegate to us and support our work. So we stake to access, if you stake particular amount of tokens of that native chain, you are getting then free access of Alter communication platform. So, and that is kind of like also motivating and getting more better rewards for layer one foundations as well, because then there's a bit more of the buying pressure, more people are interested to stake, of course, and plus we have also like a whale chat that is anonymously first whale chat that is anonymous by default. So basically, if you're like a high net owner of the tokens of that network, then you have a private anonymous chat that only the so-called whales are inside of it. So, but you never know the name. So it's really cool. um, and then our so-called expansion, I would say, would be with dedicated suites for projects and organizations or and companies to get their own like subdomains registered and get their own suites, like Slack has similar approach. Um, of course, our also main market is to penetrate and get more users from Telegram over to Alter, um, because a lot of like crypto projects and teams are still speaking on Telegram, Discord, and Slack. I would say those are not the best alternatives to use because all three of them are not encrypted. For Telegram, the only encryption is when you start like the private chat that is one on one, and that's all. The rest is still like, well, what's the business case for Telegram? Zero, right? Except the so-called stickers and everything else that they implemented now. But before, like, they raised billion in the recent fundraise, and then they changed the database locations well more to the Saudi Arabia side. And why is that? Well, Saudi Arabia is now becoming one of the biggest data center places globally. So, what does it mean? I mean, then your Telegram data is being sent there, of course, and then who God knows what happens with your data. I mean, and that's why it's for free. The same with Discord. So,
Yeah, like many other centralized companies, I mean, essentially we are the products, right? We
mm.
in this particular case. Um, so when you thought of this idea, let's touch on that. How did you come up with this idea? How did this idea come to fruition?
It kind of started to question all these messaging platforms and emails back in 2020 when G Suite was not working for a full day, and I remember that we had like a lot of calls on that day, and we couldn't reach out to anybody because simply the G Suite was completely down. So that means we are like completely cut off from communications with no with anyone. And I started to realize like maybe there are some alternatives that we could use, and basically started to understand like what are more centralized solutions meaning, what are the centralized solution meaning, when it comes to like messaging and communication. We have all these, I would say, really good experience tools and communications, but the so-called single point of failure is still there, and that means that if something happens on their end, I mean, you will not get to your data. You will not be able to also access it or run it. So that means we need to have a solution that is long-term based, which is not centralized about one entity, and definitely should be encrypted. So, and that's where I started to look upon like more use cases, like what exactly Signal is doing and how they're doing it, what exactly is Telegram doing it. Then of course understanding what is doing, like how is doing Session, for example. I've been using actually Session app for a year with one of my relatives and also one couple of friends. So basically, I'm using, I would say, almost every day, including Author. So I have been also like testing out other applications just to see like how they have created it, what is good there, what is bad, and they basically take all this information to put in inside the Alter communication platform, and then basically also to ask for uh, community and users like what they want, what they need. And then yeah, within like time, we started to kick off with MVP with Bootstrap, and afterwards we launched the so-called first mail like messaging system utilizing SIG network, and that's how we started to kind of pivot more and more to eventually becoming like a suite of services and features.
So, throughout your journey from the point of where you first had the idea to when you actually established it, at what point did blockchain come into the picture? Were you already familiar with blockchain technology, and like were you already immersed into crypto before you came up with this idea?
Mm. Yeah, yeah, I was. I'm. I started to be in crypto starting from 2017, actually, when the so-called big boom started to become more and more popular, and then I also jumped in. That was only from investment side in crypto, like tokens only. That's all. I remember I was just buying Ethereum, Litecoin, and Bitcoin, like those three. That's all, nothing more. Um, and when it comes to like technology, then I would say starting from 2020, I started to learn more and more about the blockchain technology itself, how blockchain networks works, how do you connect with them, and then in 2021 we started to actually search for a network that we can use for the communication platform because having a trusted party is good, but if you want to decentralize it, then there are some challenges. And of course, blockchain, I would say, is giving opportunity to to solve these challenges with decentralization and when it comes also to privacy and managing data. So
So when you started exploring potentially using blockchain technology, did you discover the secret network first, or were you familiar with Cosmos ecosystem in general and then dove in?
actually, the first so-called ecosystem that we were exploring was Komodo. Komodo is, I would say, one of the OGs in the blockchain space. That they have like a zero knowledge proof zk chain called Pirate Chain. So that was like one of the projects that we went there to speak and understand its proof of work. So it's not quite flexible, not really. So, but that was like the first chain that we checked out. Then it was some kind of like Dragonfly or something like that. Chain, which is also like kind of private based. I need to check the correct names. So then, of course, we had contacts with Dash. We also then checked out like Quartal project, which is like the centralized internet. Then it was Ether protocol, Wedge currency, um,
So it sounds like a
some
lot of
more.
trial and error.
Yeah. We did quite a lot, extended research, and then later on we also found out about Secure Network from Cosmos ecosystem. So we had all these projects lined up, and we were like booking calls and checking in with every single team and understand like how they work, what are the possibilities with privacy, with data for communication, etc. So and then we decided to go with Secure Network. That's because they have programmable smart contracts for private information, where you can say like which is the public part, which is the private part, and then basically it's everything managed by viewing keys for the users. And then of course they have the hardware encryption, where they have the trusted um, execution environment. So that means everything that's being done is trusted by the so-called parties, that the information will not be accessible to anyone else, but both the parties who are like transferring and receiving information. So
And was that an advantage over, say, zero knowledge proof?
yeah, I mean, zero knowledge proof, like the proof of work, the prior chain, they didn't have the possibility to have the programmable smart contracts. So that was one of the case why we didn't go for it. Plus, also proof of stake Secure Network is, which is much more faster and also less heavier than the pirate chain, for instance, is. But I would say maybe there are some approaches that are good. Um, we haven't like researched every single zero knowledge proof approaches, so I think there's like more than 10 definitely how you can do about the zero knowledge proof. But what one thing that I don't like kind of is the central authority that you still need to have in zero knowledge proof to connect the both parties, and that is something that we don't want to have.
What's it like working with the folks over at Secret Network? Because every time I see them at a conference, it's everybody from like the Secret Network, and then you've got a ton of people, just like builders, hanging out by the booth. So I feel like there's like a lot of camaraderie there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Signature has really great developers in general. I would say the ones who are still building are definitely OGs in the space and understand what they want to achieve and what they want to have and why they use Secret Network. Like for instance, we have Shade protocol, we have CNN network as well. We have Stash, or we have Button Group. Then we have also Bushy. I would say a lot of like these long-term projects, including us, that has been building on Secret for some time. And I mean, I would say it's the best place when you want to have some privacy, of course. And if you want to develop something around that, then I would say it is the place to go.
Yeah, I had a great time connecting with some of the builders. You mentioned Bushi and Serta, the folks over at Lithium. Uh, really great
Mm.
guys.
Yeah, setup. Yeah,
Yeah.
3VM are really good guys.
So, I actually spoke with Luke from Trivium, and he said that you
Mm.
guys have been collaborating. Like, what kind of expertise is he bringing to the Alter Network?
The most recent one, actually, what we have done is with so-called alter payments. So basically, sticker payments between the users. That will be something that we're going to be releasing together with them in early January. So basically, the coding is actually done. What we need to is to integrate inside of the front end. So it will be like WeChat that you have like possibility to send payments between each user using only the so-called Alter ID, nothing else. So and that's pretty cool.
So essentially, one of the features that you're adding to your communications network is the ability to conduct payments in a safe
Yeah,
way.
yeah, between the users, correct. Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting, and I'm excited to hear that you're still continuing to build. So, where exactly are you in terms of your roadmap? Are you still in the development stage, or
Hmm.
where are you?
Yeah, actually, we are preparing for announcing a new product, which is huge for us and also for others to use. So basically, within a week or so, we will be announcing the so-called new roadmap as well, and also the new product that we're building. Um, the new product is around the infrastructure, but as for now, with Alton Communications, we are finalizing this week the full redesign of the platform. Today we posted some teaser on Twitter and Discord, so if you want to check out, you can definitely go there and check it out. Meanwhile, also working on native iOS. Hopefully, by end of this year, we're gonna have on New Year's Eve native iOS support. If not, then I would say first week of January. And then January, New Year, we're gonna be working on the Android native application and also on the desktop. So basically, we're gonna have like full support with everything. So basically, we can get any team, any organization or community to start using Otter because we'll be in the sweet spot finally with all the features and really great value propositions, including like private file management inside of it. So, but meanwhile, we are developing the so-called new infrastructure product, and it's all around the confidential computing and hosting. So basically, it's something that we are very passionate about because we also haven't found on the so-called market a possibility to have decentralized and confidential hosting, which means that we cannot use, for example, AWS because simply it's not decentralized and they don't have any confidential computing. Of course, they have confidential computing, but the private keys that you're generating, they're not accessible or available by you. So that means you're kind of not actually confidential there. um, so in order to have a possibility to have that, well, we have to kickstart it with some nice partnerships along the way to build out this and yeah. So information more will come within a week or so.
Can't wait. So let's talk about privacy. Obviously, this is something. It's the core ethos of Secret Network. It's a core component of what you're building. What does the future hold for privacy?
Yeah, I think privacy is getting more and more important in our daily lives because we see how the data can be used against us, and also it can be used for certain matters to manipulate other topics on our behalf, or actually to input for researchers and also analytics. So that means not only we are giving away decisions for them to choose, like, or checking all this data, but at the same time you're losing possible monetization on our data because they're making huge business out of our so-called inputs where we don't have anything in return except the product that we are putting the data in. So that's like pretty funny that we have a great user experience where we put the data in for them to analyze. And more companies, and I would say also government institutions, are looking for more easy accessible and cheaper ways to have the confidentiality, to have the privacy over the data. Also, regulations, I would say, will be much more stricter when it comes to data processing because the data is just growing massively every single year, and the demand for cloud solutions are also growing hugely. So all these things are like internally like so connected that, I mean, the privacy will be needed when we want to separate data from like non not so important to very important, and especially when digitalization of our like personal data, more like of healthcare records or digital identities or our credit histories. Everything, I would say, must be private in a way, and definitely given to the users the potential chance to manage it. So my kind of like ideal place where I see very great like a product or solution is, for instance, with governments, is that all your data around about yourself can only be accessible when you give the permission to. For example, I need a service from a governmental body. For instance, I want to get social guarantees. Then I give for one day an access right to the social worker to overview my so-called social tax payments, and that's all. And then after that is done, I revoke the access, and nobody can have this information. But at the moment, this kind of like information or anything about you is accessible 24/7. And I would say that is kind of like a breach of our so-called private lives as an individual, that somebody somewhere has always an access to my data. And I would say that is pretty disturbing when it comes to giving the trust to the government, for example, paying taxes, everything else, but in return you don't get anything out of it. Especially when it comes to your like private safety, when it comes to your private data. If you get some enemies, what's gonna happen then? Or if you get uh, if you're like a big player in the so-called I don't know, global markets, like what will happen with your data? Who will be checking it? Who will be trying to buy it off? I mean, all this is very like challenging, but of course, society must change, and society would need to understand why the price is needed. Uh, but of course, it's a super struggle question when it comes to majority of the masses. But when it comes to like companies, it's much more like easier to understand why it's needed for companies. So I think that's where we are at the moment, that we're building actually tools for companies more than for the private sector, because private sector is not so demanded of it. We have some parts of people, individuals who are taking precautions, who are taking alternatives to use, but I would say it's not still yet the time for society, but it is, I think, the right time for companies to use private products.
One of the things that I hear, there's certain companies where when you read their terms, it can be pretty scary. So maybe that should be an incentive for a lot of
Mm,
consumers to spend more time reading terms, and then that would potentially incentivize them to look for alternatives. But I think that when you zoom out and you look at blockchain as a whole, you started off with decentralized finance, right? That was the first use case,
mm,
or the most common use case, and then we transitioned into NFTs, and you have gaming, and you know, when you think about what that next wave is, personally, I'm thinking that it's revolved around data, whether it's, specific privacy or just being able to monetize only specific types of information
mm.
that you have more control of your data. So I think it naturally, just talking to you and talking to a lot of the other projects and what they're focused on is on it sounds like that, you know, definitely not financial advice to anybody out there, but it sounds like, data is, going to be a large part of blockchain.
Oh yeah, I blockchain actually is the tool for the data. It's like a new database. You know, we have like MongoDB, we have Cockroach DB. I mean, Orbit DB, which is like distributed database approach. And then we have like for instance blockchain. It's also some kind of like database, to be honest. And this database is actually then being distributed to whole wide network, which is kind of like decentralized, copying the same things and then basically verifying that hey, this is the right stuff. You cannot penetrate it, you cannot impact it. So that's like the good thing part of it, that you cannot manipulate the data that you have been stored before. So the status of it, and that's like the beauty of it that makes it perfect for blockchain to use. But of course, there's another thing with blockchain is that blockchain can be used actually to strong arm the so-called mass surveillance. We can strong arm our finances as well by becoming completely undestructible or impactable. So that means um, I know if we want to strengthen like I know CBDCs or we want to strengthen like the current fiat system, well, blockchain is the way to go actually. Like from technological side, it's completely rational. It completely gives the use cases, and I mean, but on the other hand, what does it mean for a citizen? Will it be beneficial for them when the so-called systems are much more stronger, much more easier to actually get the status of each single person's wallets instantly, or to stop transactions, or to set expirations for money or for benefits that you're getting. So yeah, it is tricky question actually, but definitely blockchain is the next step for data management, data storing, verification, sharing. So, and that's what we have also been thinking about with the new infrastructure product, with the hosting and confidential computing. So,
Yeah, I mean, many may say, okay, well, this trend is already here, but it hasn't quite reached, mass adoption just quite yet. But I want to touch on something because, you and I are having this great conversation talking about all these amazing benefits of, using blockchain technology and specifically around privacy. There's one dark cloud that's kind of looming over our heads, or potentially, we don't really know yet, and that's regulations. How would how is the regulatory framework, and what could potentially unravel here within the next few months or maybe a year? How would that impact the industry as a whole, specifically around the privacy?
mm. When it comes to regulation, well, I think the majority of regulation that is stepping into is about the finance side or the token crypto side. So that means the assets that we are putting a price tag on it. I would say those will be definitely more regulated to I would say avoid potential fraud scams that are happening with all these big projects that are coming from, I would say, the Web3 space, for example, FTX, hundreds of billions wiped out just overnight almost. When you have, for example, Terra with USD um, as well. Well, nobody was protected, and I would say maybe the regulation will save somebody from that, but I doubt so. We have regulated market of financial system of current, like fiat money, and do we have some protection really? No, we don't have. 2008 crisis, banks got bailed out, but people lost money, and then people paid the price with the increased taxes, with frustrating prices, and lost jobs. So, what does it mean for like crypto? I would say it's the same. You cannot get over regulated or all these things like in a safe haven. No, definitely it will be similar to with fiat system regulation. Definitely like a security and. And you need to be compliant with KYC, with AML. But I mean, I think it's much more easier to get those goals set and reached on blockchain rather than in a fiat system because we cannot follow and get publicly records from banks where they are sending money or where they're receiving it. On blockchain, like we have the trackability of all the public records. So I would say blockchain is much more transparent when it comes to seeing all these transactions and then basically meeting the requirements of regulation. But when it comes to regulation over the blockchain technology, I would say there are no regulations. Only when I see like possible regulations is about processing like individual data in certain regions of global world, like which markets you're like processing and which segments you're targeting to have like if you're like healthcare, you need to have the licensing. For example, if you're offering services in the United States, if you're providing in Europe, you need to be compliant with GDPR. So basically, all these things, of course, still applies to blockchain technology. But in general, yeah, I would say more stricter will be definitely the digital assets. We must be prepared for it.
Do you feel like Alter Network, like, do you have the framework to be able to pivot if certain regulatory restrictions come into play?
Well, basically, that is always a question to our partners who are so-called issuing taking consideration over the digital assets. But I would say it is possible, and I think the regulations are kicking in, and I think it's much more better when you are having, like, for example, virtual asset service provider license, which is one of the, I would say, in most popular licenses in Europe that people are getting when it comes to like crypto products. So, and I think that is necessary, of course, to take up these regulations and at least have some so-called certification of it and licenses, so you're more respectable in the industry and more trustworthy. Because I mean, the biggest investments always are going into regulated markets more. So
Yeah. Well, Oscars, thanks so much for the insight into privacy, into your thoughts on regulation, and in general, just what you're building with Alter Network. I'm looking forward to seeing what transpires. You said you've got a few features that are coming out. So, where can people follow along on your journey?
yeah, definitely follow our Twitter at AlterDApp with double P and then Alter.network website. Definitely also join our Discord Telegram and try out our communication platform. We're currently supporting Sticky Network Stake to Access and also Evmos Network. and we will be supporting by end of this year also a Cash and a Agoric network. So be sure to check out and definitely always ask questions if you have.
Absolutely. Any parting thoughts for the listeners?
Um, I would say we would love to get you onboarded onto Alter Network, and definitely if you're a team or a community or a project who are using like Telegram, Slack, Discord, please reach out to us. We want to offer a tryout, and definitely we want to understand what would be the best way how you can transit to our platform from, for example, these three mentioned platforms to us.
Well said, Oscars. Oscars with Alter Network. Thanks so much for your time today. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you, Mikhail. It was also nice speaking with you and having me here. Take care.